Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to another deck tech. Yes, I haven't done one in a while. This is a deck that I only built last Thursday, and since then it has done a lot. It has definitely done a lot in a week. I got rank 1 with this, and by quite a considerable margin. It's the highest I've ever been on ladder, actually. I ended up at 1940 points. I've never reached higher than that with any other deck. So I got rank 1. I then played it in Masters, and it was very, very good there. I have played it in a tournament as well, in the silver ticket qualifier, and I ended up going 5-1. So the deck has done incredibly well in the last week, and so I thought I'd do a full deck tech on it. Now, keep in mind, this is the version that I played at Masters. It was teched to beat red decks in particular, so if the meta changes a bit, if there's a bit more implants running around, for instance, then obviously the deck will need changing, but this is just the version I've got right now. So, what is Elves? So, Elves is, well, your stereotypical green aggro deck. It went away for a bit. We had Elf Winter from about November to about February, where the top deck was Elves, so there was that. But then Haldiri Rider and also Hermelion got hit, so that deck got obliterated, for lack of a better term, and also Unicorn got nerfed a little bit in the patches around that time as well. So why is this deck good again? Basically, Silverfang. The extra 2-drop, it's basically Elf Warrior copies 5 through 7. And honestly, that was enough. That was enough to make the deck good again. Yeah, the bar was... It turns out it wasn't actually as far away from being good as we thought it was. So yeah, it only took one extra consistency booster. So first things first, the hero power. So we're running basic Neva. Now, for 1 mana, you get to give everything you play this turn Swift. Now, this works as a general thing, not just from hand, so stuff like Brother-in-Arms does work. You get the full 4 damage out of your Brother-in-Arms, which is actually a pretty big deal. 4-turn cooldown is exceptionally long, so usually you'll only activate this twice in the game. Once in the early game to get some value, and twice to finish them off. That's generally... I don't think I've activated it more than twice in a game yet. I've either lost before then, or I've won before then, so... You only really need 2 activations. So, first things first, let's start with the 1-drops. Now, we've got Grove Guardian. Grove Guardian is the signature 1-drop that does tons of damage. Absolutely tons of it. This thing will usually attack for 2 or 3 with stuff like Summoner Druid or Brother-in-Arms, and is also part of the deck's ridiculous burst combos later on in the game. It also works incredibly well with Nienna and allows you to play really long games and get through huge creatures. I actually played in Silver Ticket Qualifier, and in one of my games I was against Angels, and I attacked through an Antriel with a Grove Guardian, because it was a 6/6 off of all the Nienna draws. So yeah, Grove Guardian does get out of control quite fast. Now, he's not exactly as reliable as some of the other signature 1-drops are, like Valusworn Incarnate, for instance. And the reason for that is simply because he only has 1 HP. He's basically just a 1/1 on your opponent's turn, which means you have to defend it. And it means against stuff like Fia, it's very, very vulnerable, and also stuff like Word of Fire or Fumes or Vermin can take it out. Pretty much any removal can take it out, but those games where they just don't have the removal, and you go first and you play Grove Guardian, they can't kill it, and then you swing in for 3 the next turn, those really do make up for it. And the fact that it can be used with Brother-in-Arms Ridiculous Burst also helps. So the second 1-drop is just really for consistency's sake. Elf Scout. Elf Scout does not look like a lot at first. In fact, even now it doesn't look like a lot. If you just look at the thing, it's like, okay, really? But yeah, it doesn't attack for much. It doesn't really trade very well. So why are we playing it? Well, you need an extra 1-drop, and also 4 speed. You'd be amazed at what 4 speed can do. Elf Scout has 2 uses in my mind. It allows you to get favorable trades that you really shouldn't be allowed to. You basically get to trade an Elf Scout for Library Guards if you have an Elf Scout and an Elf Warrior, for instance. Which, yes, you're a card down, but you just traded a 1-drop for a 3 mana card that he had to play on turn 4. So It allows you to get some increased tempo there. It also allows you to generate mana off Summoner Druid, which is a weird trick where you can use Summoner Druid to gain a mana. If you use Elf Scout for the first creature played, then you activate and you've effectively just gained a mana since it generates 2. So yeah, you can do some weird ramp tricks with Summoner Druid as well. It's just a decent creature. It also works really well with Amber Strike and allows you to kind of chip away at people later on in the game. So, solid 1-drop, not the best card in the deck, but definitely worth the slot. So, on to the 2-drops to round out the early game creatures. Well, we've got Summoner Druid, which is your way of splurging creatures into play. Now, Summoner Druid always looks a bit innocuous, but whenever you play him, a good player will always snipe the Summoner Druid if they can. The reason for it is because you play him, you activate him, you play another 2-drop. If you had a Grove Guardian, he attacks for 3 instead of 2 that turn. But besides that, you basically just said, okay, so I'm down a card, but I've got a 1-1 in play and I didn't lose any mana. The craziness happens on second activation, when you play another 2-drop and then you activate and you play, say, an Ambushing Sharpshooter. Now you're a 1-1 and also a 2-2 up on board in terms of tempo. You've effectively just gained 2 mana of tempo straight away, and also you've got your 1-1, which is not the worst body in the world, so it's still fairly usable. Now, Summoner Druids often get sacrificed to Guardian of the Faithful late game, that's for sure. But besides that, also helps with Nienna. You get extra velocity off of your Nienna, and you can activate Summoner Druid to keep the Nienna chain going for longer in a lot of cases. So, looks a bit innocuous, but is very, very dangerous. The rest of the 2-drops, they're basically the same card, well, sort of. You've got Elf Warrior and Silverfang. Now, they both are 2/2s, 3 speed, cost 2 mana. That's crazy. 2/2s with 3 speed are absolutely nuts. They're very, very hard to deal with, and they have a habit of ripping your opponent to tiny pieces. It's just really hard to deal with. 3 speed in general is very difficult to interact with for a lot of decks, and having 2 HP means they avoid a lot of the ping effects. So they avoid stuff like Fire Blast, which can also cause a lot of issue. So they provide a very, very solid backbone to your sort of offensive push, and they're very hard to block. So the 2/2s, 3 speed are both very, very solid. Now the only difference between them is one of them's legendary, so you can't play 4, and Elf Warrior can work with Nienna, but Silverfang has deadly against, well, mostly just Blood-Seeking Mutant, but also helps against implants because you can swift out a Silverfang for 3 mana and then take out an overcharged creature. So those are the difference between them, but basically they're the same card with slight different perks on either side. I don't really think one is better than the other. Silverfang is better if you have it, but Elf Warrior can be drawn off Nienna. So yeah, it also works with Grove Guardian, so they're about even. But anyway, so that's the early game stuff. Now we move on to the mid to late game. Yep, late game is Halderia Rider. That's a low to the ground curve there. So what are you going to be playing after that? Well, probably an Ambushing Sharpshooter. There are 4 in the deck. Now, it was 3. The reason it's 4 is because this is the same list I played at Conquest, and the only matchup that we found has been relatively close has been Rage. So the 4 Sharpshooters help with Rage. That's basically why they're in the deck in such high numbers, and they also help you get a little bit of extra damage through against some other decks as well. Besides that, 2/1 body's not fantastic. Having ranged is huge. Having swift is huge. You're really paying in stats for those 2 abilities together. It's a very, very good pair of abilities, and it means that you get to use a creature instead of your hero power to get these easy trades just in 1 card. Sharpshooter allows you to kind of use your hero power for burst as opposed to for value trades like you often have to with other creatures. So, decent card. After that, since you want to integrate your hero power with this, you got the Brother-in-Arms. Now, Brother-in-Arms usually, not always, but usually gets used in 2 places. On turn 4, with the hero power, you get 4 hasted damage, you get to take out some creatures, you buff your Grove Guardian twice, it's very, very powerful. The other time it's used is late in the game. Now, late in the game, you get to do some very, very silly things with Grove Guardian and Brother-in-Arms, where you have 1 Brother-in-Arms, and you've got 2 Grove Guardians, for instance, and the hero power, and you go Grove Guardian, Brother-in-Arms, and you have, what, 11 damage? That's, yeah. 11 damage for 5 mana. It's a lot. It definitely is a lot. Now, granted, that's a good circumstance for you, but the fact is, it does happen. And when testing this, it just did some outrageous burst combos, and it allows the Wisdom Dominion matchup and the Rage matchup to get swung a lot. So yeah, the big burst combos is where Brother in Arms really shines and is a very, very powerful card. Not running Death Trap, it doesn't feel as necessary. If Brother in Arms was changed to not work with basic Neva, then I'd probably just switch to Death Trap, because that's also 4 damage, but it's not as good with Grove Guardian, basically. And it's not as good with actual trades. So, to Unicorn. Now, Unicorn is basically just to kill Burning Rage. It also deals with just random stuff like Restless Tombs. That feels kind of unnecessary. But yeah, it just deals with Burning Rage. Burning Rage can be a problem. Not always, though. As in, sometimes they play Burning Rage and then they can't really do much. And if they have Burning Rage into removal, yeah, they can keep up. If they have Burning Rage into Phoenix and you have Landslide, the game's over. But for those games where you just don't have the pressure, or you didn't have Ambushing Sharpshooters to help deal with the early board that Rage can field, then you need a Unicorn to get rid of that Burning Rage. Nienna does not last against Advanced Zash, so it really can't be relied on as much. However, often with Nienna, you can just play it when you have a whole bunch of other pressure, and if the hero power is on cooldown, then he has to start using actual removal, and if he uses it on Nienna, then he starts getting hit in the face. So Unicorn definitely helps grind out the Rage decks a lot more efficiently than you'd normally be able to do so, as opposed to just having to rush them down, which is what you have to do if you don't draw the Unicorn. Now, the last of the smaller creatures is Nienna, the incredibly powerful draw engine that drives this entire deck. It seems like all the aggro decks have massively powerful draw engines. You've got Dark Portal, Burning Rage, and Nienna, which they just straight up outdraw control decks. It's kind of insane. Nienna, if not dealt with, will win you the game. It just will. You will put out so many elves that there's basically nothing they can do. And because of stuff like Grove Guardian, all of those elves result in tons of damage, and also if you get 5 elves later on in the game off of Nienna and you use your hero power, your opponent's dead. So yeah, Nienna is incredibly, incredibly strong. It plays a little bit like Burning Rage in that regard, however, it can be removed more easily. There were 4 in the deck originally, but I ended up cutting down to 3 because Legendary is a bit awkward, and in some matchups, like against Angels, they can't even kill Nienna, so there's no real reason to have 2 at any point. So cut down to 3, but Nienna is a backup plan instead of your main strategy. Your main strategy is rushing them down, but Nienna is definitely a very, very solid backup plan that will allow you to win games you probably shouldn't. If I'm quite frank, it will allow you to win games that you really should not be able to. Now, the last creature in the deck is Haldir Rider, just a 3-off. He's just designed to get some damage in. Ultimately, it's an aggro deck. You want to go face a lot of the time. So Haldir Rider allows you to get 3 damage off of your Nienna when you don't have your hero power up. It's basically why he's in the deck. He's not very good at trading anymore, but he's still very, very good at hitting the face very hard. So, onto the spells. Now, you may have noticed there are no Tornado Outbreaks in this deck. The reason for that was because leading up to Masters, the metagame was basically Wisdom Dominion Control, which Tornado Outbreak doesn't do a lot against. And we were planning on banning the green decks, and Rage is not that affected by Tornado because stuff like Phoenix you have Landslide for instead. So we just cut Tornado entirely. Now, that did cause a little bit of a detriment because it meant that you kind of had to say, well, if your opponent's playing Implants, it causes a bit of a problem. But Silverfang does make up for that weakness a little bit. It does definitely do something there where you can use Silverfang with Swift to take out the implanted creature instead of a Tornado Outbreak. So it's not foolproof, but with the metagame we were leading up to, that's why we're not playing Tornado. Now, in the future, I may end up playing some more Tornado Outbreaks. It depends on where it goes after the expansion comes out, and also just the next coming weeks, because it really does depend on how popular Implants is, because that's the deck that Tornado really does punish. So yeah, that's my little stint on Tornado Outbreak. The 2 spells we are actually running is Landslide, the ever completely broken nature spell. It feels really broken to play with and against. If you ever played against someone who's played 3 landslides in a row on you, you just can't do anything. You really can't, and it just cripples Angels and Rage and it can utterly destroy pretty much any deck, and it's just crazy good. Absolutely crazy good. And it does steal victories where you landslide their 2 blockers and kill them, or you landslide their spells they set up and then they have to set them up again, and then by that point they've lost so much tempo they probably can't win. Very, very powerful spell. Talked about this extensively in other videos, but yeah, it may sound like a broken record, but the card is absolutely nuts. Ambush Strike. Have not seen this guy in a while. Yeah, Ambush Strike was a 4-of when I did my ladder stint. That's because there weren't any rage decks. But yeah, it's basically, it allows you to get a little bit of tempo over on stuff like Library Guards, and also allows you to get a little bit of extra burst, where you can turn 1 creature into 7 damage sometimes if you draw multiple Ambush Strikes. But ultimately, I mean, the cut from this was 4 Ambush or 4 Sharpshooter, and we decided on 4 Sharpshooter because of Rage. As I said, this deck will probably change in terms of numbers later on, since this is a little bit of a prototype, but the deck is still very, very good regardless. Besides that, 18 Shrines. We're not running Elven Sanctuary because, well, I tried to, and I didn't use it in 10 games. Yeah, it just never comes up. It's often better just to have an extra card, is what I found. It just never seems to come up. Yeah, it's odd. I don't know why, but it never works. And this is something where usually if you can trade because of it, the creatures will... if you can kill one of his creatures because of Elven Sanctuary, usually you also lose your creature. So it just doesn't feel that worth it. And with 18 Shrines, and you're playing mono, so you don't run into Shrine-related problems that often. Now, I say that often, haven't exactly been Shrine screwed with this that much. However... did lose 1 game yesterday to drawing 5 Shrines in a row. It happens. That's basically what I have to say on that. Alright, we're against red. Double Grove Guardian, double Elf Warrior, Sharpshooter. This is a very, very good hand. If he has Fia, that kind of sucks, but if he doesn't, he's dead. Yeah. If he has Fia, that's kind of annoying. It's not exactly game over, though. Like, if he plays Fia, I play Elf Warrior, and then I'm still ahead. He did not have it. Okay. That's insane. That's even more insane. So I was thinking triple 1-drop, but Summoner Druid plus Elf Warrior takes out the Fireworker for free. Now, if he has Fia, he'll go after the Grove Guardian, so I'll move this forward. We're going to Divine the Elf Scout. Yeah, this hand was very, very good. Very, very good. Now, this matchup in general, a lot of people think that Rage is like good against Elves. I have not found this to be true. Now, I mean, when I said that on stream, there was a bit of a joke. It's like, well, it depends on the caliber of people you're playing against. But I mean, I did my testing for this deck against Uska, who's one of the best Rage players in the game. So we did thoroughly test it. Yep, straight game, just completely overwhelmed. And it's the kind of thing where he went second, and he didn't have Fia. So he died. Now, I am going to see if I can get another game, because that was insanely quick. But yeah, it was basically 1-drop. I mentioned it in the deck actually. You go Grove Guardian, and if your opponent doesn't have removal, they're dead. It does so much damage, so incredibly fast. But yeah, the deck in general has done some crazy things on ladder. I ended up going, I think it was like 24-3 on ladder, and in there was a 21 win streak, which is the longest win streak I have ever had playing anything. It was ridiculous. But yeah, it seems to... the only matchup I found that is very, very close, and I actually have no idea whose favorite is Demons. Now, part of that's Harpy, part of that is Succubus, and things like that. And I don't think it's a bad matchup. I've played it 4 times. I'm currently 2-2 against Demons, but 3 of those games have kind of been decided just by like random Shrine-related stuff. So it's very difficult to gauge where the matchup actually goes. So Demons, I'm actually very sketchy on for the matchup for this. I don't really know. Besides that, the rest of the meta decks, it's good against Angels. It is about 60-40 against Rage. because a lot of it's just who stumbles, since the decks do play very, very similarly. The reason it's favored is because if you go first or second, you can still fight the Rage deck, whereas in Rage Mirrors, whoever goes first usually wins. Partly because of Sharpshooter going second. Ambushing Sharpshooter going second allows you to catch up on tempo. So that definitely helps out. So it's about 60-40 against Rage. It's favored against Angels. It's favored against Wisdom Dominion. I think it's about 7-1 against Wisdom Dominion, at least from the games I've played. It's not massively lopsided if they draw sort of, like Ramp Spell, Mutant, Ramp Kata, or something like that, which I understand is a good draw. But yeah, it's not impossible for the Wisdom Dominion Terrier to win. He needs stuff like Vampirism and Lamps, and the versions playing Silencer are definitely very, very good. Okay, against Elves at least. Alright, so we've got 1-drop, and then we've got Summoner Druid 2-drop, and a Nienna. This is keepable. And by keepable, I mean it's good. Like, they're not Grove Guardians, but it's definitely good. We won't Divine yet, because I may want the Elf Scout to do some ramping. Now, this could be Order Dominion soldiers. If it's Mono Order soldiers, this should be incredibly favored. If it's Order Dominion, then the Assassinate does exist, which will cause 1 or 2 issues, potentially. There's the Grove Guardian. So, I'm definitely playing Summoner Druid this turn. The question is, what do I do with the rest of it? I think I want the extra speed in play. So we're going to get the Summoner Druid down, and we're going to go Silverfang. And my Elf Scout gets through for free. Next turn, if necessary, I can go for a Grove Guardian Swift with Nienna and get an extra 2-2 in play. Assassinate. That's a very, very awkward Assassinate if he has to do it. Wow. That I did not expect. Unbreakable Spirit. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do here is just get a Grove Guardian down. The question is, what do I do with the rest of it? So he wants to leave some mana open so that he can play this Unbreaking Spirit. I'll take out the Relic Guard immediately while I can. And I think I go Grove Guardian and then set up the Nienna. I'll play the Elf Scout. This is a bit awkward in terms of my Divine Offering for next turn, but having a Nienna in play will definitely make a big difference. He needs an Assassinate, basically. And if he does have Assassinate, that takes up his entire turn, and then he's just taking more and more and more damage. So this is a definite good spot for me. Yeah, being an aggro deck, I mean, it's a consistent aggro deck, so it has a habit of punishing the slower openings. And that's something which Rage has as well. I have compared these two decks a lot before. Rage and Elves do play very, very similarly. They're both very, very hyper quick sort of aggro decks, and they have a late game strategy to maintain card advantage, and they also have a lot of burn. In the case of Rage, it's literal burn in the form of spells going directly to the face, and in the case of Elves, it's the Nienna, well, not Nienna, the Neva hero power, getting a ton of damage out late game. But they're more backup plans. Like, it's the kind of thing where it's like Burning Rage is sometimes a backup plan, for instance. That's annoying. I want the Landslide. Actually, if I go Elf Warrior with Swift, I can take out both Relic Guards, right? But then I'd have to give up my Landslide, which I'm actually not a fan of. Haldiri. Okay, so we ended up still getting an Elf, but it's not a 3-speed one, unfortunately. So what we can do here is take out one of these Relic Guards and then get in 4-5 total. So it is Order Dominion, but the Relic Guards, like Relic Guards against Rage, can definitely do some work. Against Elves, less so, because a lot of the Elves are 3-speed anyway. In the case of Elf Scout, they're 4, so you can't actually do anything with you can't really do anything with a Relic Guard against an Elf Scout, because it will just run straight past. Vampiric Touch. Curious what he uses that on, actually. Now, I've got to think of my play. I think Landslide is probably the best to do. Yeah, probably. Simply because if I Landslide, one, I avoid future mind extortions, and two, I get to completely destroy his card advantage engine. Partly because, well, I got rid of Unbreakable Spirit, but secondly, because he has to then draw one of them, and then Divine Offering to shuffle the other one away, and if he misses, he's dead. Oh, he had Bloodseeking Mutant instead. Now we'll divine this first. Second Landslide. Okay, so what we can do here is Landslide these two, and then I can trade my Summoner Druid using the Enna to tie it up, and then Silverfang to kill it. Yeah, and I think that's the play we're going to do here. Yeah. And he just straight up resigns from there. Landslide, I mean, he saw the second one in hand as well. So, I mean, he knew it was coming, but still, it's... yeah, it's very, very brutal. But anyway, so that's two incredibly quick games. This is the upside of playing aggro decks, but it does mean you get to show off the gameplay a little bit less because of just how fast the games are. But yeah, that's basically a quick rundown on Elves. Two games just punishing slow openings, or in the case of Rage, just having Sharpshooter like, having just Sharpshooter in general against Rage is nuts. But yeah, the deck has some explosively fast openers, and it's very, very powerful. I am a little concerned about it, but I haven't played enough of the deck. I've played about 40 games of the deck total, I think, now. But I haven't played enough of the deck against some of the newer stuff to know whether or not it's overpowered or tier 1 or whatever. But from what I've seen, it is definitely very, very strong. But I need to play against stuff like Implants and some of the stuff using the new cards. And also when the set comes out, that's when we'll know whether or not it's good or not. Because keep in mind, this time, I mean, it's using one of the new cards, but it's only one of them. It's only Silverfang. And if there's any other sort of aggro type elves, they'll definitely end up in the deck as well. So we'll have to see where this goes. But yeah, overall the deck is very, very strong, at least for now. Now in terms of other deck techs, I'm going to do one on the Rage deck I played at Masters, and then I'm also going to do one on Wisdom Dominion. So yeah, I'll do one of them in a couple of days. Actually, you guys can probably just put something in the comments to decide which one I do. They'll both be out within about 5 days, I should imagine. But yeah, so either Wisdom Dominion, Control, or Rage. So yeah, put something in the comments, and depending on how many people ask for each one, I'll do that one first. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or want to ask me questions, put it in the comment section below. If you want to support the channel directly, there is a link to my Patreon in the description, and there is also a referral code for people starting out that will give you 75,000 gold, and also the Disquisitive Spirit Card Back. But now, it's been Jotto, signing off.